Baldoni, welcome to The Issue Is.
What's up, my friend?
Yes.
Thank you for taking a break from politics.
It's hard to get me to do that. So you may know.
This afternoon, the legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni took another sharp and complicated turn, one that was certainly not the development Lively's PR team had hoped the public would simply accept. A federal judge granted Lively's motion to strike the entire transcript of her deposition from the official court record, meaning nearly 300 pages of sworn testimony disappeared with a single ruling. And although her legal team quickly celebrated the decision as a decisive courtroom victory, the moment appears far less about fairness or justice, and far more about controlling the narrative, curating her image, and shaping the headlines. All of it aimed at filtering what the public is permitted to see or understand about what is actually unfolding behind the scenes. Court filings indicate that Baldoni's side, via the Wayfair parties, only cited a small portion of Lively's own statements, yet attached the full transcript to provide context that allegedly presented a far more unfiltered and unpolished version of her. It is a version she evidently does not want circulating. And although the judge argued that the filing served no legitimate litigation purpose and accused Baldoni's team of misusing the docket, observers following this feud have noted that the language closely mirrors the talking points Lively's camp has been promoting to the press for months, raising questions about coincidence, influence, and strategy. These questions become sharper in light of long-running claims, firmly denied by Lively's team, that she had exaggerated workplace or creative control disputes to gain leverage over Baldoni and his partners, while her husband, Ryan Reynolds, was said to have used his Hollywood clout to protect her brand and weaken Baldoni's public standing, which leads to the obvious point of tension. If Lively truly has no concerns about her deposition being public, as her representatives insist, then why fight so aggressively to have it removed? And what details contained within those pages might undermine the pristine image she has maintained for years? Sources aligned with Baldoni argue that this latest maneuver fits neatly into what they describe as the Reynolds-Lively strategy: delay, distract, and ensure sensitive material never reaches the light of day. And although yesterday's ruling may appear on paper to be a victory for Lively, the reality is far more precarious. If the case reaches trial or proceeds into deeper discovery, portions of the deposition are almost certain to resurface in open court. And even a handful of lines could disrupt the carefully crafted narrative Lively's team has spent months constructing. In that sense, the so-called win functions more as a temporary shield than a lasting triumph. When those moments arrive, the media will not need the full transcript to identify inconsistencies that may emerge. A single contradictory remark given under oath can outweigh even the most polished PR messaging. This is likely why Lively's team continues investing so much effort into controlling the flow of information, framing each development as an attack, and positioning her as the victim of a coordinated smear campaign, even though the intensity of the suppression inevitably raises more questions than it answers. And in the end, the truth, whatever it may be, tends to surface, regardless of how strategically anyone tries to bury it. And when the truth finally does surface, The public will judge for themselves. Supporters of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds insist that the couple are not merely engaging in Hollywood-style image management, but standing firmly by their version of events. And truth has a way of emerging, even when one side is accused of trying desperately to bury it. Yet the judge's recent language carries its own implications. Although he struck the transcript from the record, he noted that Lively's testimony includes allegations that Baldoni's allies orchestrated a smear campaign against her, effectively reinforcing her narrative of being targeted. But the ruling does not validate that claim. It simply prevents the public from reviewing whether she supported it with evidence or relied on broad, unverified assertions. Legal commentators observe that judges seldom grant motions of this nature unless the material is unusually sensitive, highly damaging if released, a scenario that would arguably benefit Lively more than anyone else. Meanwhile, Reynolds has remained publicly silent, though industry insiders claim he has been working behind the scenes to encourage major outlets to frame the ruling as a vindication for his wife. Critics describe this as a familiar, Lively Reynolds strategy. Control the narrative first, deal with the facts later. Ironically, striking the deposition may have strengthened Baldoni's argument that Lively is attempting to use the court to shield potentially damaging material that could reappear during the next stage of proceedings. To those following the feud, this strategy feels familiar. Commentators who have worked on past projects involving the couple allege a recurring pattern: creating a sympathetic public image, channeling information through media outlets perceived as friendly, and portraying opponents as unstable or dishonest.
Some insiders even claim that individuals who clashed with the couple experienced quiet professional repercussions or sudden waves of negative press, though these accounts remain unverified and strongly disputed. The same dynamic appears to be unfolding with Justin Baldoni. Lively's legal team accuses him and his associates of conducting a smear campaign. Yet, critics point out the irony. The alleged smear is based on a deposition that her side is fighting relentlessly to keep sealed. The narrative only functions if the public never sees the original material. And thanks to the judge's ruling, she has gained more time to maintain that secrecy. Even the judge's criticism of parties litigating in the press echoes wording similar to what observers describe as Lively's PR messaging. And Reynolds, known for his sharp media instincts, has long been adept at shaping public perception through humor, timing, and carefully crafted publicity. Supporters see this as savvy branding. Detractors view it as a form of strategic spin, a technique that can become particularly potent in the context of a courtroom dispute. At its core, this case is about far more than legal arguments. It is a battle over narrative control. Baldoni's camp seeks full transparency, while Lively and Reynolds determine what the public is permitted to see. History shows that when they control the narrative, their opponents often lose, not just in court, but in public perception as well. Within hours of the ruling, Lively's media machine went into overdrive, with industry-friendly outlets publishing headlines such as "Judge sides with Blake Lively, strikes Baldoni evidence," a polished narrative the couple has long relied upon. Yet these headlines omit crucial context. The evidence in question was Lively's own sworn testimony, filed under seal, so the public never saw it. The judge's ruling did not confirm the truth of her claims, revealing a sophisticated strategy to shape public understanding, even as Baldoni works to cut through the Hollywood smoke and mirrors before jurors and the public reach their own conclusions. This conflict extends well beyond the courtroom into the realm of cultural narrative and legacy, where controlling what the public sees can determine who ultimately emerges victorious in both legal and social arenas. The recent court ruling striking Lively's deposition does not clear her of any allegations. It merely removes one inconvenient document from the docket. Legal analysts have emphasized that this is a procedural victory, not an exoneration. Yet, procedural wins make for compelling soundbites, and Lively's PR team is acutely aware of that, flooding the press with one-sided stories to create the illusion of momentum. A tactic reminiscent of political messaging, where a minor battle is sold as a decisive victory while the broader conflict. Sources indicate that Ryan Reynolds has personally contacted select journalists, offering exclusive quotes and behind-the-scenes insights on the condition that coverage remains sympathetic, turning damage control into narrative engineering. Each article portraying Lively as the aggrieved party complicates Baldoni's efforts to gain a fair representation in public perception. However, the more aggressively Lively attempts to control the story, the more suspicious it appears. If her account is entirely truthful, why sanitize every detail before it reaches the public? And why rely so heavily on Reynolds' Hollywood connections to influence coverage? Baldoni lacks a billion-dollar brand or blockbuster franchise to shield himself, but he maintains a reputation for transparency. And an increasing number of observers are questioning why Lively and Reynolds are so determined to keep the dispute hidden. The PR battle rages outside the courtroom, across social media feeds and news cycles, with the Reynolds Lively machine operating at full force to present only the version of events they prefer. Yet no machine is infallible. Legal experts caution that over-controlling a narrative can backfire, particularly when judges and jurors perceive manipulation. By pushing so hard to remove her deposition from the record, Lively may have inadvertently raised suspicion. The public may not know exactly what those nearly 300 pages contain, but they are now aware that she does not want them seen. In court, perception matters almost as much as proof, and jurors are not blind to media tactics. Should the case proceed to trial, they will remember headlines, curated soundbites, and one-sided coverage, recalling that Lively's team fought fiercely to keep her sworn statements concealed, planting seeds of doubt. What is she hiding? Even the judge's comments when siding with her emphasize that the decision was procedural, not substantive, a distinction that could become crucial if Baldoni argues that Lively is misusing the court process to safeguard her image. And considering the court previously admonished the Wayfair parties for litigating in the press, the spotlight may inevitably return to the couple. Control of the narrative, while powerful, carries inherent risks in high-profile cases where public and judicial perception intersect. Lively's press strategy reflects a highly calculated effort to shape her public image. But the very intensity of the effort invites scrutiny, demonstrating that in battles of both law and perception, even the most meticulously crafted image remains. Hollywood observers caution that Lively's approach carries inherent risks with fans, as her brand has long been built on charm, relatability, and an impeccably clean persona. The more this legal case exposes the lengths to which she manages her image, the more the cracks begin to show. Should audiences start to perceive her as manipulative or overly calculating, the repercussions could extend far beyond the courtroom and into her career itself. By contrast, Justin Baldoni projects an almost effortless authenticity, presenting himself as open, cooperative, and unafraid of scrutiny, a stark contrast to Lively's secrecy. In a conflict where perception can be as decisive as evidence, that contrast may prove pivotal. The central dilemma is that in striving so aggressively to shape the narrative, Lively may inadvertently be losing sight of the broader picture. Once public trust begins to erode, no amount of Hollywood polish can fully restore it. The scenario unfolding with Lively and Ryan Reynolds is far from unprecedented. It reflects Hollywood's long-standing survival strategy. When scandals threaten a carefully curated image, the most influential couples unite, revise the story, and hide behind fame until the controversy subsides. Historically, actors have faced misconduct allegations, producers have been exposed for abusive behavior, and prominent couples have been implicated in dubious dealings. Yet the pattern remains consistent: deny, deflect, and bury the truth beneath a flood of public relations spin until the audience moves on. Shielded by wealth, industry connections, and meticulously constructed media narratives, Lively and Reynolds appear to be employing this same playbook, maintaining their status as Hollywood's golden couple, celebrated on red carpets, adored in interviews, and seemingly untouchable in the media. Behind carefully curated Instagram posts and witty public appearances, they are employing tactics reminiscent of the industry's most notorious cover-up strategists. By keeping Lively's deposition sealed, she protects not only herself, but the Blake and Ryan brand, which carries immense value in endorsements, movie deals, and cultural influence. Even minor cracks in that reputation could prove costlier than the lawsuit itself. Reynolds, leveraging his experience in social media and press influence, reinforces this defense, while Baldoni, lacking a comparable media fortress, represents a unique threat. He can communicate more freely, release evidence, and appeal directly to the public without filtering or interference. This dispute, therefore, is not merely legal. It is a clash between a Hollywood power couple determined to preserve their narrative dominance and a filmmaker willing to jeopardize his reputation to challenge them. Historically, even the most polished brands eventually encounter consequences when the truth emerges. For years, Lively and Reynolds were seen as untouchable, witty, glamorous, scandal-free, and airtight in public perception. Yet recent developments, including this lawsuit and subtle industry whispers of behind-the-scenes tension, suggest that their previously impervious public persona is beginning to show signs of strain, highlighting the increasingly precarious balance between curated image and authentic perception. The tensions between Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni are becoming increasingly visible, particularly in light of a pattern of disputes emerging between the couple and their former collaborators. Several projects are reported to have ended in disagreements over creative control, eerily mirroring the allegations now associated with Baldoni. Coupled with growing whispers that Reynolds can be difficult behind the scenes, a picture emerges of a slow, controlled erosion of the couple's carefully curated public image. Social media has become less forgiving. Posts that once drew universal praise now attract comment sections filled with skepticism and subtle criticism, prompting fans to question the polished perfection of the couple's public persona. When promoting a recent project, numerous entertainment outlets noted how aggressively Lively and Reynolds' PR team filtered interviews, shutting down any questions regarding the ongoing lawsuit. A level of control that rarely ... goes unnoticed. Leaks continue to surface, with anonymous insiders claiming that Lively is intensely focused on preventing specific portions of her deposition from becoming public. Whether due to potentially damaging statements, contradictions, or personal details, the exact reasons remain unconfirmed outside the legal teams. The more her camp fights to suppress this information, the more the public assumes the worst. In the court of public opinion, secrecy breeds suspicion. Lively and Reynolds are, perhaps unwittingly, doing part of Baldoni's work for him. Their efforts to control the narrative already signal to observers that something is being hidden. Their image is not collapsing overnight, but eroding gradually, one small fissure at a time. As the case continues, those cracks risk widening. By the time Baldoni receives his day in court, the couple may have already lost the most valuable asset they possess: control over public perception. Baldoni is in a rare position for someone confronting a Hollywood power couple. He can highlight the emerging cracks without having to fabricate controversy, presenting a strategy centered on transparency by sharing every legally permissible piece of evidence. This approach draws a sharp contrast with Lively's secrecy. Furthermore, he can communicate directly with the public via social media, interviews, and opinion pieces, bypassing the traditional Hollywood press machinery dominated by Lively and Reynolds. By offering unfiltered information, he enhances public perception of his authenticity, while casting doubt on the couple's efforts to control the narrative. Baldoni can also contextualize their behavior within a broader industry pattern, demonstrating how other figures have faced similar suppression tactics. In doing so, he frames Lively and Reynolds as emblematic of a systemic issue in Hollywood, where powerful individuals act to protect themselves at all costs. This elevates his legal dispute into a wider conversation about fairness and transparency in the entertainment industry. In this context, timing becomes a critical tool. By strategically releasing filings, witness statements, or public remarks whenever Lively's camp attempts a PR victory, Baldoni ensures that media coverage includes his perspective, gradually positioning himself from underdog to truth-teller, the individual willing to stand up to Hollywood's golden couple without backing down. Once that narrative begins to take hold, even the formidable Reynolds Lively media machine may struggle to contain it. Every high-profile legal battle has a pivot point, a moment when momentum shifts. For Baldoni, that moment appears to be approaching, with the deposition itself serving as the most obvious trigger. Although the deposition is currently sealed, sealed does not guarantee indefinite protection. Should the case progress to trial, or if portions of her testimony are disclosed, the carefully controlled image Lively and Reynolds have cultivated over years could face challenges that might permanently alter public perception, exposing cracks that social media and PR spin can no longer conceal. Tensions surrounding Lively, Reynolds, and Baldoni are poised to escalate as the deposition, while still under seal, could soon become a public flashpoint. Excerpts relevant to other motions may be read aloud in open court. Cameras might be barred, but reporters will be present, and once those words enter the public record, their impact cannot be reversed. Another potential trigger lies in third-party witnesses. Baldoni's legal team has reportedly secured testimony from individuals involved in the production dispute, who are not affiliated with either party and can speak freely. If their accounts contradict Lively's narrative, it will not only undermine her credibility, but also make the secrecy surrounding her deposition appear far more suspicious. The media dynamic remains crucial as PR control functions only while the story remains straightforward. Once reputable journalists begin to investigate, the couple's carefully constructed victim narrative could begin to fray. A single investigative piece, supported by documents and credible sources, has the potential to pierce months of polished press coverage, prompting other outlets to follow suit and amplifying public exposure. Then there is the unpredictable factor of Ryan Reynolds himself. His public charm has long served as the couple's most effective shield. Yet, if even one credible source publicly links him to behind-the-scenes pressure tactics or direct influence over the case, that protective armor could crack. Hollywood brands can falter quickly under perceptions of hypocrisy, and the couple's previously unassailable image could face unprecedented scrutiny. For now, Lively and Reynolds. Yet the turning point need not be spectacular to be devastating. It only requires one undeniable moment when the truth pierces through the spin. When that occurs, the golden couple's grip on the narrative could unravel overnight. This conflict has never been solely about a deposition. It is a struggle over power. Who wields it? How it is exercised? And what happens when someone refuses to yield? Lively and Reynolds have meticulously crafted their image as Hollywood's golden couple, employing charm, influence, and media control to maintain an air of untouchability. Justin Baldoni, by contrast, is not playing the same game. He faces scrutiny unfiltered, does not hide behind sealed transcripts or selective headlines. And that is precisely why this confrontation carries such weight. The court's ruling to strike Lively's deposition from the record is just one skirmish in a broader battle. While she may have won this round, the decision exposes the very vulnerability she seeks to conceal. The possibility that if fully revealed, the truth could dismantle her carefully maintained narrative. The next phases of the case will determine more than legal outcomes. They will define who ultimately controls the story. If Baldoni continues to bring hidden details to light, the public may finally see what has transpired behind the red carpet smiles. When that moment comes, the Reynolds lively empire will not quietly fade. It will face dramatic repercussions, with the potential to dismantle the polished legacy the couple has spent years constructing. Until then, the confrontation looms. On one side, Hollywood's most refined power couple, determined to protect their brand at all costs. On the other, a filmmaker unwilling to let his voice or the truth be silenced. When the decisive moment arrives, it will transcend a mere courtroom verdict. It will become a judgment on whether fame alone can grant immunity in Hollywood. Should Baldoni prevail, the consequences for Lively and Reynolds would extend beyond legal defeat, threatening to unravel the image and legacy they have cultivated so carefully. This battle is far from over, and the truth is inevitable. The public must watch closely. The instant that deposition becomes public, the fallout will be dramatic and unavoidable, reshaping perceptions and challenging the carefully constructed narrative on which Hollywood's golden couple has long relied.